Now we come to Sutta 152, the last Sutta of Majjhima Nikaya. Indriyabhavana Sutta, the development of the faculties. Bhavana is development, Indriya is the faculties. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Kajangala in a grove of Mukelu trees. Then the Brahmin student, Uttara, a pupil of the Brahmin Parasarya, went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side. The Blessed One then asked him, Uttara, does the Brahmin Parasarya teach his disciples the development of the faculties? And he answered, he does, Master Gotama. But Uttara, how does he teach his disciples the development of the faculties? Here, Master Gotama, one does not see forms with the eye, one does not hear sound with the ear. That is how the Brahmin Parasarya teaches his disciples the development of the faculties. And the Buddha said, if that is so, Uttara, then a blind man and a deaf man will have developed faculties according to what the Brahmin Parasarya says. For a blind man does not see forms with the eye, and a deaf man does not hear sound with the ear. When this was said, the Brahmin student, Uttara, Parasarya's pupil, sat silent, dismayed, with shoulders drooping and head down, glum, and without response. Stop here for a moment. You can see here the Buddha's wisdom, how sharp and swift it is. In one of the suttas, the Buddha praised Sariputta as having very sharp and very swift wisdom. Hasapanya and Javana Panya, I think the Pali terms. Sharp wisdom and swift wisdom. So you see, because this Brahmin Parasarya, he says, development of the faculties means not seeing forms, not hearing sounds. The Buddha immediately said, then the blind man and the deaf man will have developed faculties. Then he realized, it's true. Then he could not answer the Buddha. He was totally ashamed, put his head down. Then knowing this, the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Ananda. Ananda, the Brahmin Parasarya teaches his disciples the development of the faculties in one way. But in the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties is otherwise. And Venerable Ananda said, now is the time, Blessed One. Now is the time, Sublime One, for the Blessed One to teach the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the monks will remember it. Then listen, Ananda, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, he replied. The Blessed One said, now, Ananda, how is there the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline? Let's stop here for a moment. The supreme development, I gather, must be the supreme development of the Arahant. Here, Ananda, when a monk sees a form with the eye, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus, there has arisen in me what is agreeable. There has arisen what is disagreeable. There has arisen what is both agreeable and disagreeable. But that is conditioned, gross, dependently arisen. This is peaceful. This is sublime. That is equanimity. The agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease in him, and equanimity is established. Just as a man with good sight, having opened his eyes, might shut them, or having shut his eyes, might open them, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding forms cognizable by the eye. Stop here for a moment. So here when a monk sees form agreeable, there arises in him what is agreeable. In other words, if he sees an attractive object, attractive form or a beautiful form, a likable form, then agreeable feelings arise, pleasant feelings arise. And if he sees an ugly form, then disagreeable or unpleasant feelings arise. And sometimes form might be attractive in certain ways and unattractive in certain ways. Then you have both agreeable and disagreeable feelings arise. We must understand Arahant is not like a wood or a stone with no feelings. Arahant also has feelings. The only thing is Arahant's feelings are totally controlled. He is in total control of his feelings. So here the Buddha says, for this Arahant who has this supreme development of the faculties, when he sees something pleasant or unpleasant or both pleasant and unpleasant, then the corresponding feelings, pleasant and unpleasant or both pleasant and unpleasant arise. But then he understands that this is all conditioned, and so he attains equanimity very fast. Just as a man with good sight, having opened his eyes might shut them, or having shut his eyes might open them so fast. So too the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. So whatever feelings arise, because he does not cling to those feelings, they just cease. This is called the supreme development of the faculties. Again, Ananda, when a monk hears a sound with the ear, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus, and equanimity is established. Just as a strong man might easily snap his fingers, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, disagreeable that arose, and both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding sounds cognizable by the ear. Again, Ananda, when a monk smells an odor with the nose, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus, and equanimity is established. Just as raindrops on a slightly sloping lotus leaf roll off and do not remain there, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding odors cognizable by the nose. Again, Ananda, when a monk tastes a flavor with the tongue, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus, and equanimity is established. Just as a strong man might easily spit out a ball of spittle collected on the tip of his tongue, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding flavors cognizable by the tongue. Again, Ananda, when a monk touches a tangible with the body, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus, and equanimity is established. Just as a strong man might extend his flexed arm, or flex his extended arm, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding tangibles cognizable by the body. Again, Ananda, when a monk cognizes a mind object with the mind, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus, and equanimity is established. Just as if a man were to let 2 or 3 drops of water fall onto an iron plate heated for a whole day. The falling of the drops might be slow, but they would quickly vaporize and vanish. So too, concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding ideas cognizable by the mind. That is how there is a supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying, whenever for an Arahant who has a supreme development of the faculties, whenever any external sense object, namely form, sound, smells, taste, touch and thoughts, impinge on the sense basis, there might arise pleasant feelings, that means agreeable feelings, or unpleasant feelings, disagreeable feelings, or a mixture. But then they quickly cease, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. So there are a few similes given here to make us understand. The first one, just as a man with good sight, having opened his eyes, might shut them, or having shut his eyes, might open them. Then the second one, just as a strong man might easily snap his fingers, so the feelings that arise just calm down and turn to equanimity. The third one, just as raindrops on a slightly sloping lotus leaf roll off and do not remain there. Then another one, just as a strong man might easily spit out a ball of spittle collected on the tip of his tongue. Then another one, just as a strong man might extend his flexed arm or flex his extended arm. Then the last one, just as if a man were to let 2 or 3 drops of water fall onto an iron plate heated for a whole day. The falling of the drops might be slow, but they would quickly vaporize and vanish. So out of these 6 similes, you can consider these 2 as most appropriate. In paragraph 6, just as raindrops on a slightly sloping lotus leaf roll off and do not remain there. So you can see in the same way the feelings that arise in an Arahant just fall off and turn to equanimity. And paragraph 9, just as if a man were to let 2 or 3 drops of water fall onto an iron plate heated for a whole day. That means the iron plate is red hot, and then you put 2 or 3 drops of water, they immediately vaporize and vanish. So in the same way, whatever feelings arise in an Arahant, pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, they just vanish very quickly, just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, as the Buddha says. That is a supreme development of the faculties. It's very different from ordinary person. An ordinary person, when feelings arise, we cling to it, especially pleasant feelings and unpleasant feelings. Unpleasant feelings, you cling to it in the sense that you have aversion for it, and it sticks in your mind. It sticks in your mind, this aversion. Now we come to paragraph 10. And how Ananda is one a disciple in higher training, one who has entered upon the way. Here Ananda, when a monk sees a form with the eye, or hears a sound with the ears, or smells an odor with the nose, or tastes a flavor with the tongue, or touches a tangible with the body, or cognizes a mind object with the mind, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He is ashamed, humiliated and disgusted by the agreeable that arose, by the disagreeable that arose, and by the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose. That is how one is a disciple in higher training, one who has entered upon the way. Here, the Buddha is talking about a Sheka, an Aryan disciple who has not finished his work, who has not become an Arahant, but he is Arya, still in training. So, because he understands the Dhamma, when he sees a form and certain feelings arise, pleasant or unpleasant, or he hears a sound and similarly these pleasant and unpleasant feelings arise, etc., then he realizes that he is not in full control of himself. He is moved by these external sense objects. So he is ashamed of himself and is disgusted by the feelings that move him. For example, because an Arya he is not finished his work, so he still moved. For example, you might see a beautiful girl, and then his heart goes boom, boom, boom. Then he realizes he has not finished his work, and he is ashamed. He is not. He's not perfect yet. Especially if there's an Arahant around who can read his mind. Like during the Buddha's time, there were many Arahants who could read their minds. So one of these Arya who has not finished his work, then he has this type of thoughts and feelings and all that. He knows some other Arahants can read his mind. Then he'll be even more ashamed. And how Ananda is a noble one with developed faculties. Here Ananda, when a monk sees a form with the eye, or hears a sound with the ear, or smells an odor with the nose, or tastes a flavor with the tongue, or touches a tangible with the body, or cognizes a mind object with the mind, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable, there arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. He abides perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive. He abides perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive and the unrepulsive. He abides receiving the unrepulsive in that. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the repulsive in the repulsive and in the unrepulsive and the repulsive. He abides perceiving the repulsive in that. If he should wish, may I, avoiding both the repulsive and unrepulsive, abide in equanimity, mindful and fully aware. He abides in equanimity towards that, mindful and fully aware. That is how one is a noble one with developed faculties. So Ananda, the supreme development of the faculties in the noble one's discipline has been taught by me. The disciple in higher training who has entered upon the way has been taught by me, and the noble one with developed faculties has been taught by me. What should be done for his disciples out of compassion by a teacher who seeks their welfare and has compassion for them, that I have done for you, Ananda. There are these roots of trees, these empty huts. Meditate, Ananda, do not delay, or else you will regret it later. This is our instruction to you. That is what the Blessed One said. Remember, Ananda was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. So here this third one is the Arya with developed faculties. Now this Arya with developed faculties, when these six sense objects impinge on the six sense basis, then if he feels repulsive, he knows then he can, because he's in very good control of his mind. If he wants to perceive the opposite, he can do so. So if he, for example, when we see a corpse, a dead and smelly corpse, we feel revulsion, we are repulsed by it. But for the Arahant, if he wants to, for this Arya with developed faculties, because his mind is so strong, if he wants to perceive the opposite, he can do so. Repulsive becomes unrepulsive. and unrepulsive can become repulsive. For example, if he sees a beautiful form, if he decides that he wants to perceive it as repulsive, then he can consider inside the body there is blood, there is pus, there is excrement, there is urine, all the dirty things, then he can perceive it as repulsive, even though it's a beautiful form. So, for this Arya to do that, he must have a very strong mind. He must have the fourth jhana or higher jhana, or maybe even psychic power, where he has very good control of his mind. So he knows when certain feelings arise, he knows, he's aware of it. And if he wants to turn it the other way around, he can do so. But it's different with the supreme development. Just now we read the Arhan with supreme development of the mind. Any feelings that arise immediately, very quickly subside and become equanimous, like automatic. Becomes automatic. So this is quite an interesting sutta concerning this development of the faculties. So the ordinary person, when any feelings arise, is moved, very much moved by feelings. Whereas for the Seka, the Arya in training, for example, the Sotapanna or Sakadagamin, then he is also moved, but because he is mindful and he knows the Dhamma, then he feels ashamed. He quickly tries to correct his perception. And then for a monk who has attained the 4 jhanas or higher, the mind is very strong. And when he perceives in a certain way, if he wants to, he can perceive the opposite. And lastly, the Arhan with the supreme development of the faculties, any feelings that arise, of course, it's automatic. Pleasant and unpleasant feelings arise, but very quickly they become equanimous. Cease, because this Arhan's mind is so how do you say, so still, so calm, that he is not moved. He cannot be moved by feelings. It's like a solid rock, big solid rock, and the wind tries to move the rock. The wind cannot move this big solid rock. So we have come to the end of the Majjhima Nikaya Suttas. 64 talks. It's longer than the Samyutta Nikaya that we did last year. But many of the suttas are very interesting. And we find many of the suttas are very practical, very, very good for monks. Very good for monks. So, if there's anything to discuss, we can discuss. A lay person can attain the first jhana if he strives hard and he spends a lot of effort in meditating, and he has to let go a lot of commitments, a lot of things that give you worry, that give you anxiety. So, for example, a businessman is quite impossible for a businessman to practice the spiritual path. One, for example, a teacher or one in government service, it will be easier. He doesn't have to worry so much. Yes, agreeable and disagreeable refers to mixture, pleasant and unpleasant feelings, right? Yeah. No, these two, pleasant and unpleasant, they are separate, but just that there is a combination. Whether a Sotapanna can become an Arahant. Possible, I think, if he strives. But it is mentioned in the suttas that Arahants are only found in the human plane. So if this Sotapanna, when he comes back as a human being and he strives hard, it is possible probably for him to become an Arahant. Yes, actually, when we go on Pindapata, as far as the monk is concerned, he is giving a chance for lay people to get married. He's giving a chance for lay people to practice generosity. We don't really beg for our food in the worldly sense, because a person begs for his food when he asks for it. Monks are not allowed to ask. We don't open our mouth. We just stand there and give lay people a chance to do merit. So in that sense, we don't beg for our food. But a lot of lay people, they don't understand. They think that monks go and beg for their food. And sometimes when the monks get a lot of food, some lay people are not happy. Why is this monk so greedy? Take so much offerings from the lay people. The thing is, we never ask. If your karma is good, if the monk's karma is good, then he gets a lot of offerings. If the monk's karma is no good, even he wants a lot of offerings also he cannot get. So we just let things go according to karma. But a lot of lay people, they don't understand. Some lay people, they see, this monk gets so much food, there's no need for me to give him alms food. So they stop giving alms food. There's some people like that. We have experience here, They stop giving us alms food because they think we have more than enough. But they don't know that they need to give alms food. They need to practice generosity. Sometimes some monks, they don't need to go on Pindapata. If the monk's karma is good, even the monk doesn't go on Pindapata for alms round. Lay people will come and bring food, bring offerings. Monks generally can survive without going on alms food. But we take the trouble to go on alms round to educate the people and to carry on our tradition that has been handed down from the Buddha, and also to give lay people a chance to increase their blessings. So the lay people who don't understand, they think we are begging for our food. Eating for a monk, eating in a restaurant, eating in a home, we are governed by the monk's precepts. In the monk's precepts, a monk is not allowed to share the same dish from a lay person, or even sharing the same dish with another monk who belongs to a different Dhamma Vinaya, who follows a different Dhamma Vinaya. We are not allowed to share the food with a monk. For example, we practice Theravada. We are now allowed to sit down on the same table and share food with a Mahayana monk, because they follow different Dhamma Vinaya. They follow different sutras, and their practice of the Vinaya also very different. So because of that, the Buddha has laid down in the Vinaya rules that we are not allowed to share the food with monks of different Dhamma Vinaya. So if a lay person invites a monk to a restaurant, generally we try not to go because it doesn't look very nice. But sometimes when we are traveling long distance, then we have no choice. We have to go to a restaurant to eat. In which case, we make sure we don't share the same dish with the lay people. If possible, we sit on a different table. Sometimes it's not convenient. We can sit on the same table, but we make sure all the food is offered to the monk first. Then after that, we stop taking. We don't take anymore. And going to a house for house dana is all right. Even during the Buddha's time, monks went to lay people's houses to receive alms food. But in the same way, we cannot share the dish with a lay person. What page? Yeah, because noble disciple means Arya. Yeah. Okay, we shall end here on this auspicious night.